Hello, hello, welcome, good evening, good afternoon, happy weekend. Today is actually just Thursday. I don't know why I said weekend, probably because I haven't been working. Alright, today is my day off. I'm glad to see you guys joining early, and I'm also glad to see that posting an event for a live show was actually kind of successful, at least for a select few of you who managed to see it somehow. Probably because of the notification, probably because it's listed on the YouTube channel, or maybe for other reasons. Beginning a short new series today, Ida, who actually bears the name of my dog. Some of you have seen the dog here probably, the Golden Lab. Ida will be going through the Fallen Empire 9 chapters in the next few days, I hope. That depends on my free time, of course. I plan to have each chapter in a standalone episode for YouTube, and I'm not certain yet how many I will be streaming together, but today I'm planning for chapter 1 and possibly chapter 2. Before that, I'm gonna do a very quick overview and briefing for those of you who have never played the Shadow class. I've selected a different spec, so I don't have to play the same one over and over again compared to my previous walkthrough, which was Imperial side, but you know that the classes are still the same. And let's log. We will do a quick, I don't know, maybe 5-minute overview of the class. I'm starting to remember and relearn because I haven't played the spec in more than probably 1 year since before 3.0, so more than 1 year. There you have it. It is Infiltration. I've played Hatred on the Empire side, which is Serenity here. So this time I'm gonna go with Infiltration. There is 0 dots in Infiltration. It is a very kind of a bursty, surprising spec because of its name. It is the second one available for the Shadow. It is a DPS spec as well. Very melee friendly, very bursty, very surprising, with some AoE involved, but I would probably say it is, out of all the classes I've played, and I have played all of them, though not all of them recently, currently I rank number 1 Shadow Infiltration to be the most dependent on procs and RNG spec. You guys will have to agree probably, or if you disagree, just let me know why you do. Of course Volk is a legendary player. By the way, I have had all the classes since, I don't know, the middle of 2.0. I can't really remember when I finished all of them, but thank you. It is nice to have that loading screen, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, a few words about Infiltration and Shadow in general. Let's see, can I find this? Oh, there we go. Infiltration, planning a coordinated attack from a position of stealth and striking at the most opportune of times. The Infiltration Shadow is a master of surprise. By adopting special force techniques, the Shadow's attack can become even more effective, building to a powerful crescendo is a word I don't know and I was lazy to translate it. That the opposition won't even see coming. Yes, that's true, I did a little bit of a trash killing on Yavin. This is another example of how you start level 60 character. She is not a brand new level 60. Hey Fan, and hi Lionel. Hello everybody else who might have joined but hasn't said hello yet. I did a little bit of a training, relearning process for like about an hour earlier today. Hey Jim. And I'm really eager to relearn that spec. I went through all of the descriptions of all of the abilities. I think I managed to put back all of the important and active abilities I will be using. It is stressful and to some extent even depressing to show so many empty spaces on my toolbars. But yeah, this is an alt. It's one of my later alts. It's one of the characters I've barely played since 2013 probably, or the end of 2012 as a matter of fact, even though she's 60. Story-wise, she is in the middle of, or actually in the beginning of, where is it? Yavin 4, I'm sure it's here somewhere, there we go. Defeat Revanite partisans and followers is the remaining description of the quest I'm currently tracking. This will all disappear and I haven't witnessed it myself, so we're all going to witness me for the first time, some of you probably not for the first time, how exactly this is done, but we know that once you start the chapter 1 from Fallen Empire, every single piece of main story will be locked for this character backwards, and I want to see how they're going to warn me about that and how they're going to delete all of these purple quests. Alright, let me tell you a few words about the title I've chosen for this mini-series. Dark Desires is a reference to the dark side choices Ida will be making through the walkthrough. It's not like we have too many and too complicated options, but there are some available for the 9 chapters in Fallen Empire and hopefully for the future. Ida has always been a dark side character. I've always leveled up her in all of the progression from 1 to 50, then 50, 55, 55, 60 with the dark side choices. She's not exactly a dark side Jedi, she's probably more like a grumpy, mean Jedi. She doesn't necessarily want to do the dark side options because she believes in the Sith culture. No, she's just mean girl. And if you have never seen her, I would like to show her to you, show her off, because I truly believe that she looks very, very nicely. This is the hat from Rishi. The robe, I believe, is imitation of one of the Rakata sets or PvP sets. I believe it was the Champion PvP set or Battle Master PvP set. Someone can correct me, I'm sure, if I'm mistaken, but it's one of the sets that don't exist in the game anymore, and they have been replicated from Cartel Market. And this one, in this case, is a vendor item from the vendor that sells these things for tokens when you're farming the Forged Alliances flashpoints in the story arc. You know, you get those special tokens. There is a vendor sitting in front of the entrances for the flashpoints on the fleet, and this vendor sells that thing. I can't remember its price, but I definitely like it. We have seen the weapon already because I played with this weapon through all of the 25 episodes of Sianka's Adventures. And another cool thing I would like to show it to you. Look at that. I hope it's visible on your screens. Tionese Survivor's leg wraps. Obviously the mods have been replaced, thank God. But if you joined the game a little bit later, Tionese is one of the very first, very basic, very most oldest gear sets. If I can't even remember now if the Tionese set had set bonuses. I think it did. It's just it was very, very old and it's not available anymore. It looks very similar to the Rakata pieces. Rakata also doesn't exist in the game anymore in this name and in this form, but different kinds of replica models are available from the Cartel store and various reputation vendors. Unless you have something specific to add, ask, or tell me, I would suggest you guys, let's begin with the overview of the infiltration, a very quick, brief description of all of these passives. Yes, some might be boring to some of you, but I would like to be thorough, and I know that some people have never played that character, and maybe the beginning at least of this walkthrough series, the beginning of this episode, would be interesting to them. So infiltration is the first TPS option for the Shadow, or the second discipline from 3 available. Very early at level 10, as soon as we are able to pick the discipline, we get the Shadow technique, which is the toggle skill. Every class gets a few of those. And the Shadow technique allows the Shadow to... Let's start reading, wow. Assume a Shadow technique using all your available force, giving your melee attacks a 50% chance to deal internal damage and build 1 breaching Shadow. There are so many procs and different abilities that are related to the procs that it will probably be very confusing for some of you who haven't played the Shadow before. It was confusing for me, and I guarantee you it still is. I want to do that overview because Fallen Empire is ridiculously easy, and I wouldn't have a chance to really test my skills and that's it, exactly my skills, my capabilities of defeating tough enemies. They basically defeat themselves. Hello, Delete. I like that hashtag, Jim. You can throw me on Twitter with it if you like. Alright then, let's skip on this, or otherwise I will never finish. Breaching Shadow stacks up to 3 times and increase the damage dealt by your next Force Breach. This effect cannot happen more often than every 6 seconds. And Force Breach is this ability, which has different effects depending on what toggle I'm using. For Shadow Technique toggle, it releases your Breaching Shadow to deal internal damage. This damage scales up with each stack of Breaching Shadows. So the more stacks, up to 3 you have from Breaching Shadows, the better damage you will be doing with Force Breach. And there are more related things to Force Breach and Breaching Shadows later on, so let's keep reading. I'll answer that question in a moment, please. If I forget, remind me after I finish with the overview. Double Strike, Whirling Blow, Clairvoyant Strike, Shadow Strike, and Spinning Strike create Circling Shadow while Shadow Technique is active. Shadow Technique is again the toggle I will be using for this spec. Reducing the force cost of your next project or Psychokinetic Blast by 25%. It stacks up to 2 times. And here is the first tip. Actually, this is the ability they're talking about, Psychokinetic Blast. It's earned at level 58 and it completely replaces and deletes telekinetic, what the hell was the name? I forgot it. Replaces project. So project is being replaced at level 58 by Psychokinetic Blast. That is an utility point. I did select a few utilities, I'll talk about those later, but it was really hard for me to find whatever the hell I needed for leveling purposes. Many of these utilities are awesome for PvP. Anyway, keep reading. Shadow's Respite at level 20. While in stealth mode and for 6 seconds after you leave stealth mode, force regeneration is increased by 50%, which actually means kill the enemies faster, otherwise you might find yourself starving for force. This is only applying for leveling, of course, not for boss fights and endgame. Exiting stealth mode now finishes the cooldown of Blackout, and Blackout can now be used out of stealth mode, granting 6 seconds of Shadow's Respite and restoring 15 force. While Shadow's Respite is active, all damage taken is reduced by 25. Blackout is this ability with 1 minute cooldown, and it allows me to increase my stealth level. This is when I want to get past a special target, a special NPC, a special enemy of some sort. And also, I can use it a second time because of that passive granted to me at level 25. I can use it again after I begin battle because its cooldown is reset, and then it will give me force regeneration. The second, or actually the first real active ability is called Clairvoyant Strike, and forgive me if I am reading it wrong. I can never learn how to read abilities in this game, in any game. Strikes the target twice, dealing weapon damage with each hit. Each use of this ability builds clairvoyance, which gives project a 50% chance to automatically trigger your shadow technique off of its normal rate limit. It stacks up to 2 times again. And in case you already forgot, project after level 58, and I'm already 60, is being replaced by Psychokinetic Blast. So it will give me a proc and a chance to do an extra damage from Shadow Technique. The next one is at level 28, Profundity. Your Shadow Technique restores 9 force over 9 seconds when it deals damage. Again, it's about the passive boost, the passive damage coming from melee attacks from Shadow Technique. This effect cannot occur more often than every 12 seconds. In addition, Whirling Blow builds charges of clairvoyance, and while Shadow Technique is active, Force Breach causes its target to become vulnerable for 45 seconds. Vulnerable debuffed targets take 5% more damage from force attacks. We have 2 abilities mentioned here, and let me quickly go over and a bit about them. Whirling Blow, thank God, is my what I consider favorite AoE ability for the Shadow and for the Assassin because of the animation, not so much because of the damage the ability does. But this ability is getting boosted later on with the passives and with an utility point, so keep in mind that it is useful. And the other one is again Force Breach, which will add a special 5% bonus to the target it hits. Where was that? Here then. Project and its replacement, Psychokinetic Blast, have a 50% chance to attack the target twice. So passive second hit, with the second attack dealing half of the damage of the first one. This second attack cannot trigger Shadow Technique, the passive damage coming from my toggle. This is a very important one, potent shadows. While Shadow Technique is active, Force potency builds 3 breaching shadows, and exiting combat reduces the active cooldown of Force potency by 60 seconds, 1 minute that is. Additionally, the critical damage dealt by Shadow Strike is increased by 30%, and it's gonna get even more confusing now because I want to mention a few things that I have in mind about openers. It is only valid for my current level because level 64 is going to alter this a little bit. So starting from stealth, my idea for opener for Pve leveling again, don't get mistaken about endgame raiding or PvP. This is just what I think about Pve leveling as a low level, mid level, whatever you want to do. While you're stealthed, you should start before the combat begins. You should click on Force Potency and then after that activate Blackout. This will allow you to do a massive Shadow Strike behind the target. Shadow Strike deals a lot of damage, but it's only useful behind the target. That's a little bit tricky for leveling alone, because you have to rely on the CC abilities. Thank God Shadows do have a lot of CC abilities, so you can very easily get behind the target whenever Shadow Technique procs. Moving on, Infiltration Tactics. Direct damage attack grant Infiltration Tactics another proc, causing your next Shadow Strike to deal 20% more damage and consume 75% less force. This effect can happen only once every 10 seconds, which means every 10 seconds after the initial opener, you should be ready to use Shadow Strike, and with that you should be ready to use one of the available stuns for the class depending on your level. I can't remember which stuns CC ability is granted at what level, but 4 stuns should be useful as well as Low Slash. Low Slash is granted a little bit later here at the level 42, we'll reach it in a moment. Continuing down the line, Infiltration Tactics, direct damage, attack, grant Infiltration Tactics, causing your next Shadow Strike. Oh, wait, sorry. I actually did read that just a moment ago. We reached Low Slash level 42. It's on a 15-second cooldown, so it's not to be spammed, and it's only to be used when it will benefit, to my knowledge at least for the moment, Shadow Strike. I don't see any other good combination and reason to use Low Slash, except that, well, it does consume 20 force, but it still does more damage than, for example, Saber Strike, but it is only one hit. And for example, Clairvoyant Strike, it does low damage per hit, but it does multiple hits. And you know that every melee attack has a chance to proc many things, including the Toggle Shadow Technique bonus damage. Moving down the line, Shadow Strike sunders its target for 45 seconds. Sunder targets have their armor reduced by 20%. This is kind of a debuff that BioWare made available to every single class with different ability. And they attached it to Shadow Strike because it is an opener. Yes, I know that in PvP many people opened with the Low Slash or something else and then quickly Shadow Strike. That's just probably better, since I haven't done PvP in, I don't know, what the hell am I? Oh, look at that, Valor 12. So I actually haven't done much PvP on this character ever. Probably a little bit at level 55 or so. Moving down to the next one, Kinetic Field. Reduces the damage taken from area attacks by 30%, always useful, even in PvE and leveling. In addition, dealing critical damage grants Kinetic Field, increasing damage reduction by 3% for 15 seconds. And it stacks up to 3 times, which means you can get very quick and very easy, if there is AoE damage in the area, you can get extra 9% damage reduction. Why not? It's free. You don't really have to spend points or money or anything. They give it for free in the middle here of the discipline path. Next one, increases the damage dealt by Clairvoyant Strike, Whirling Blow, and Spinning Strike by 10%. Thank you. Nice damage boost at level 52. The next one, 4 levels later, increases all damage dealt to targets below 30% of max health by 5%. Additionally, it reduces the force consumed by Spinning Strike. Spinning Strike is a finisher ability, what I would call, because it can only be used on targets with HP below 30%. I forgot where I was. Oh, there we are. We come to the last active ability granted to the player, and it comes at level 58. Well, the last main major granted active ability that comes within the discipline system. We have one more at level 61, and I currently can't really remember what was it, but we'll check that in a moment when I start actually playing. So, Psychokinetic Blast is, as I mentioned, a replacement for project, and they do include that in the description, thank you. Blast the target with the psychokinetic power of the Force for kinetic damage. Standard and weak targets are additionally stunned for 3 seconds. Nice. It's always nice to have stunned targets. Increases, the next passive is level 60 Deep Impact, and it increases the critical strike damage dealt by Shadow Technique's Force Breach effect and Psychokinetic Blast by 10%. And the one last final passive ability at level 64 is the one that I don't still have. But it is a very interesting one, and I can't remember if it is an old one or maybe brand new, completely fresh new passive ability. Let me know if you're an active Shadow player. Fracturing Force increases the damage dealt by Shadow Technique's Force Breach by 5%. The important part is that additionally it activates Shadow Stride while Shadow Technique is active, and it builds 3 breaching shadows. You get that? Additionally, it activating Shadow Stride while Shadow Technique is active builds 3 breaching strikes. That's nice. It's kind of an alteration of some sort to the opener, possibly. And okay, a few words about the utilities that I've selected. As you may notice, I don't have the field respect, so I'm gonna get going with these utilities regardless of how much you may laugh. I think I selected some of them that would be the most beneficial. Others are just because of speed and boosts of movement and such. So, reducing of the cooldown of Mind Snap by 2 seconds is useless. Force Will by 30 seconds is relatively useless for leveling, but what's important is Force Speed by 5 seconds. This is the reason why I select this utility. The next one increases your movement speed by 15% and your effective stealth level by 5%. I don't care too much about stealth because even if I get detected, usually by droids or by very high level opponents, which will not happen here in this walkthrough, I don't really need stealth increase unless I want to pass a whole bunch of enemies slowly and naturally. Alright, never mind. The next passive increases the damage done by Whirling Blow by 25%. You remember Whirling Blow? It was boosted by some early level passives. I forgot here somewhere. Yep, this is one of the passives that boosts it, and now we get extra 25% on it. That's nice. From the Masterful, I really struggled to select what the hell I need, so I choose to increase the duration of Resilience by 2 seconds and Force Speed by half a second. Not that very useful in leveling, but should I ever need Resilience? Yeah, okay, plus 2 seconds, thank you. And I'm actually hinting here the half a second boost for Force Speed. Yay, I can move faster for half a second. The other one is Kinetic Acceleration. Activating Project or Psychokinetic Blast in my case, Mind Crush or Vanquish increases your movement speed by 50% for 9 seconds. This effect can only happen once every 10 seconds. Again, not very useful for Pve leveling, but hey, thank you for the speed boost. The last one I am allowed to pick because I have only 6 points available at level 60 is Containment. If your Force Lift breaks early from damage, the target is stunned for 2 seconds. In addition, Force Lift activates instantly. I actually picked it up because of the instant activation of Force Lift. And God forbid, at some point I might realize that I really need to use Force Lift. There it is. It's a short stun for 8... Yes, it is for 8 seconds. And as far as I remember, it doesn't apply to droids. Also, as far as I remember, none of the CC abilities that Shadows possess are actually active versus droids. This concludes the what was supposed to be short overview.